You're listening to Aging Uncensored.
Welcome to Aging Uncensored, the podcast where we unpack, unravel, untangle all of the things about the beautiful journey of aging. Beautiful? Beautiful. We're going to call it beautiful because it's 2025 and we are claiming the beauty of aging.
Have you seen the pictures of toes in my phone?
Yes. We're not going back, Nicole. We're moving forward.
Okay. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
All fun.
All the beauty of aging, all the things that bring us joy, all the things that just make us happy about getting older. But wait, this is uncensored. We're going to talk about the real things that happen when you age and you care for your loved ones and all the beautiful things that happen as you unpack, unravel, and untangle all the skeletons in the closet and all the things that come to happen when you're raising teenagers, raising kids, and loving on your parents as they get older, or loving on a sibling or an aunt or a spouse or any of those folks.
My dad's emergency notebook went with him everywhere. And he fought me tooth and nail to do it.
You must have an emergency notebook. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I am Christy Baines, the co-host of Aging Uncensored. And I have my double whammy over here. I've got Nicole Crawford and Shaylee Lawson as my co-hosts. We have Taylor Crane on production. And she's going to speak up this time when she has something to add, because we discovered on our last podcast, as we were talking about the VA homes that are in Huntsville, Pell City, Alex City, Enterprise, and Bay Minette. She's going to speak a little louder next time, but we cannot forget our friends in Bay Minette. And we're so sorry that we did that. Our producer is going to interrupt us more as we enter into 2025. She said last time we needed a whiteboard. That may be to tell us to be quiet, speak louder, or, hey, you're wrong.
She's the boss.
She's the boss of us.
She is.
She is the boss of us. Okay, so what we're talking about today, and this is going to be kind of a shorter podcast, but it's going to be a very important podcast, is what we call an emergency notebook. This really came to be, and actually kind of came out 20-something years ago, when my mom was caring for my grandmother. And my grandmother, so I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides of the family, and I came up with a wonderful grandma name of Mamaw. And both of my grandmothers were Mamaw Elsie or Mamaw Betty, whichever their first name was.
Good old Southern
names. Yeah, so Mamaw Elsie and Mamaw Betty. My Mamaw Elsie, which is my mom's mom, beautiful, lovely lady. Of her 91 years of life, 89 of them were incredible. She outlived two husbands. They both died their 22nd year of marriage. Wow. So my grandfather, that I didn't know, died when my mom was 14. It was actually from things that he was exposed to in World War II. He fought in the Pacific. He was an enlisted Army soldier. And then her precious... my step-grandfather, Papa Sid, he died when she was 89. And it was so true that, you know, the two of them made one in their later years of life. And she really was super incredibly healthy. Worked on the farm, you know, from a small town. She, you know, put both of her children through college, put herself through a master's program to be a teacher. And she did so many things, but as she got older, she started having more health issues. Some of it was actually, she'd never smoked or drank a day in her life. I don't know how she did that, but wow, thank you, Mama Elsie. But she, and her faith was super important to her. And I think that community and faith and everything that she did was what really kind of got her to be so successful in 89 years. But in those last couple of years, she did develop some things with her lungs. chronic bronchitis, which I think was probably growing up on the farm and just being where she grew up. And then she did start developing, signs of dementia. And it was really more of the dementia, and it's more of the dementia that kind of led to her decline. But there were multiple times where she was in the hospital and my mom would have to take off work. And so she started collecting the things about my grandmother. This is in the early 2000s. Starting collecting things, and it became like one file folder. Then it was 2 file folders. And then it was back in the day when mom would always get all the extra happies from like Clinique or Lancome. Oh. And so she would have all these extra like bags. And so this navy with pink polka dots, I believe, was the color of the bag. My mom can correct me, but it became the Mamaw bag. And in the Mamaw bag had all her important things, copies of her driver's license and photo and insurance cards, her medication list, all the things that we've put together in the emergency checklist. And so I saw how important that was back then. And then it's like, well, why don't you have that stuff? Right? So we do this with our clients. We put these notebooks together. I have a notebook for myself actually downstairs. It should be upstairs somewhere, as we tell our clients. Our family members should have this. We should all have this. It's so important. A health crisis can
happen at any time,
at anybody and anywhere. And I love that your dad had his notebook.
I know. I was so proud.
So he had it, and did your mom use it when he went to the hospital?
When EMS came, I made sure that they pulled it out and gave it to them. And then when he went to the hospital, and then when he went to inpatient rehab, just followed him each way.
That's great.
Yep.
We're going to be coming up on the month of February in love and red, which means everybody should give the gift of a red emergency notebook to their loved ones. And if the family member says, I can't put that together, say, well, I will help you and I will actually do it for you.
Yes.
It is a gift. And on the podcast, we will have our checklist. I've got it up on my screen here, but Taylor's going to get it on the screen. But we're going to go through what this is and how important it is to have this information. There's also a couple of questions that we put together during COVID. So during COVID, when we couldn't go with our clients and family members to the emergency room, we actually wrote letters to the emergency room staff. I mean, in forward thinking that maybe they would, have to go to the emergency room or whatever. But like we wrote information about them, like what scares them in the emergency room, what comforts them in the emergency room,
what their
baseline is, how do they normally look, all of those things, which is so important. Because, wow, Chaylee knows this, at any given time, even though somebody that doesn't have a diagnosis of dementia, acute delirium can set in.
Yeah.
And you saw this with my aunt that you helped us with.
Right. And delirium is when it doesn't have to be an older adult, but when there's a altered mental status around an acute event, an acute medical event, and delirium is reversible. So that's the biggest difference between delirium and dementia. Delirium is acute and reversible. That's right. So even someone who has no cognitive impairment, who's cognitively normal, can experience delirium.
That's right. And in that moment, the person experiencing delirium to the emergency room nurse and doctor looks like a patient with dementia.
That's right.
So very important to know. Let's just go through our John Doe. I think that's going to be the easiest thing to do. So this is a notebook that is used. You should keep it, where EMS is going to enter your house, right? Some place that your family, that you can tell EMS, if you have a caregiver that helps you, that they know where this is. And then your family members that you trust should have a copy of this as well. So what we put on the very front, and again, we're in Birmingham, Alabama, so we have several different medical systems in our area. If you're in a smaller community or so forth, you may just have one. So where it says preferred hospital, it may just be one.
Unless you don't want that one, and then you go an hour away.
That's right. And you need to put it on there, right? So on here, we've got John Doe, so it's got his name. Sometimes we'll have their full name, but let's say, my name is Christine Farguson Baines, but I go by Christy. I'm going to have Christy in parentheses or quotation marks, because in the moment I'm going to maybe respond more to Christy or something like that. And I want them to know, particularly if it's somebody that can't voice what's going on, having that personal connection, that knowing them is important. Their date of birth, if they have any allergies, very important. And honestly, some of our clients with Parkinson's, we may put that on there too, so that they're not going to be adjusting some of the meds and they know that this person has Parkinson's in the very beginning. Preferred hospital and emergency contacts. So this is just on the front sheet. Again, this is a checklist that everybody needs to have. We're going to open it up. And inside of this, on this one page, I know we've got it, driver's license and insurance card. You really can put that on one page. You do need front and back.
Yes.
So
There's a lot of important numbers on the back that maybe an admissions person has to call or something like that to verify something.
Absolutely. And use all of your insurance cards. So your Medicare, your supplemental, if you have Advantage card, you know, if
Part
it's us,
D.
your Part D, your vision and dental, might as well just put everything on there, because if your family ever needs to use this, it's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
So photo ID and all of your insurance cards, front and back. Okay, your med list. Let's put your medication list on there.
Along with your over-the-counters.
Yes, please put over the counters and supplements. Shaylee, speak to us on how just that good old supplement that you you found out online as you were watching the Constant News channel, and it told you should take this supplement. Those supplements can wreak havoc if you're trying to adjust meds or do certain things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just not all supplements are, you always need to include your supplements in your medication list and talk to your providers about
That's right.
those.
I had someone that was having severe blood pressure issues, and she was on ginkgo, garlic, and something else that began with a G. And her doctor was like, done, done, done. You don't take them anymore because you have blood pressure problems. And she had no idea.
Well, there you go. I mean, Benadryl.
Don't take that.
Please don't take Benadryl. We'll do another whole podcast on sleep hygiene. Please do not take Benadryl.
We are going to do a polypharmacy conversation. And Benadryl is not used for sleeping, people.
And if you're an older adult, don't take it.
Don't take it at
else.
all. Please don't take Benadryl at all. Okay, so your med list. I would also put a note on here if a physician is tweaking medicine, if you're, they're titrating it up, meaning like, for 3 days, take this milligram, for 3 days, take this one, whatever. If they're moving things around, or if you even have like sensitive issues that are going on. I know we've got the allergies, but if you've had some issues with medicine, I would put those on here as well.
Or if you say have kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, or you're on dialysis, there's lots of medications that need to be adjusted, and providers in the community don't always know that. So this is a good place to note, say, hey, I have kidney disease.
Yes.
Medications may need to be adjusted for me.
Absolutely. So all your medications, you're going to put all of your doctors, your pharmacy. Look, Taylor from the cheap seats. I'm so glad she did that. We talked her into it. Put your pharmacy on here. Yes. So put your pharmacy, put your pharmacies if you have multiple ones.
Especially if it's like a compounding pharmacy for something
specialty.
Yep.
Or maybe we get, last podcast we talked about the VA. Maybe you get some from the VA. Maybe you get some from mail order. Maybe you get some from wherever.
CVS.
Compounding, yes. Put all of your pharmacies. Thank you, Taylor. All of your providers. And we're going to have a whole page just for our medical history and what things that we're being treated for. So you may be on 3 different blood pressure meds and your blood pressure is managed, but that means you still have high blood pressure.
Right. That's right.
So all the different things that you may have a diagnosis for, if you have a question about it, if you have a patient portal, you can print that off and it'll have everything.
Including history of. What if my blood sugars are under control now?
That's right. Absolutely. So all the things that you've had, you've had a diagnosis of, you're being treated, anything like that, and all of your surgical history. As you're going through your providers, we see this all the time. Oh, I only have a primary. Well, I saw a urologist. Well, I saw a GI doctor. Well, I saw a cardiologist. Well, let's start unpacking those things and at least talk about why you saw them at some point. You know, a story that always hits home, you know, my dad was our biggest pro bono case. He was going to have a knee replacement, and we were doing the, 2 or 3 week out pre-op meeting with the surgical nurse. And he said, do you have any heart issues? And Dad's like, I've had some high blood pressure and that's about it. And I was like, Dad, you have AFib. No, I only had it one time. I'm like, Dad,
You still have
you
it.
got AFib. Oh, no. Well, he had like silent AFib at that point. He had it. They went to check it because you have to check it before you get cleared for surgery. Not only was he in AFib, he was in AFlutter and had to have a procedure done beforehand. So, we need to know those things.
Yeah.
Very important. Medical history, surgical history. Again, if it's daunting to put everything down, then get this information off your portal or from your primary care physician or someone like
Have
that.
a family member help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Make sure you've got, I'm going to put advance directive first, a copy of your advance directive. We can have a whole conversation and a whole podcast on advance directives and DNR, but this right now is just talking about advance directives. This document is not doing you any good if it's
at home in a safe.
or in the safety deposit box that nobody knows where the key is,
And you haven't told your children
haven't
about
told
it.
your children or any of those things.
Yeah.
And that is a document that is fluid and organic. And as things change in your family, needs to be updated. If someone's deceased, they shouldn't be your proxy. If someone has a
Dementia?
neurocognitive illness, they shouldn't be your proxy.
Right.
So make sure your advance directive is in there. It's funny, I was talking to a client the other day and she said, well, nobody's ever asked. They just ask if we have an advance directive. I'm like, well, at some point they're going to ask you for that advance directive, particularly with your age and what things are going on. And then if you've chosen that family member to be your proxy or your neighbor or whatever else, please make sure they have a copy of it
And talk to them about it.
and talk to them.
And talk to them about like the difference between I need to go to see an elder law attorney and get documents done versus how easy it is to do an advance directive.
Right.
Yeah. So, and every state is different. Some states have the pulsed or the mulched, or there's variations of forms. But here in Alabama, we have an advance directive form as well as a separate DNR, do not resuscitate form. And for someone who is able to make decisions for themselves, they are cognitively intact, they can complete an advance directive form. You can do a simple Google search of Alabama advance directive form. The Department of Public Health has a printable PDF file. You can print it, you can fill it out. I have one, my spouse has one, my father, and we've done it all. We haven't needed an attorney for an advance directive. Anyone and everyone should have one.
All you have to have is 2 witnesses. It doesn't even have to be notarized. You just have to have
That's
2
right.
witnesses. It can be your 2 neighbors.
That's right.
Super easy, get it done.
Coworkers.
Co-workers, anybody.
Yep,
that's
anybody.
right. That's right.
And then if you have and again, we'll do not resuscitate. So we had this come up the other day. I had a family put that their husband had an advance directive and it said do not resuscitate. And I said, do you understand what that means? I said, oh yeah, that's what he has. And I said, so if he goes into cardiac arrest, you don't want EMS to come in here and give him CPR. Oh gosh, no, I want that. Well, have you had a doctor sign no? And I said, okay, you do not have a do not resuscitate. What you have is an advance directive, and let's take a look at it. And when we went and took a look at it, the advance directive still had her husband, who has progressed dementia, as the first proxy.
Oh yeah.
So, well, we're going to need to change that.
Yeah.
And you can change that now.
Yep.
And then their power of attorney had the wife and the 2 children as co-powers of attorney, joint powers of attorney, serving together. And a lawyer needs to talk about how complicated that makes it for the person that is trying to help with that power of attorney. That's going to be a whole nother podcast, but there are reasons to update and make sure, even just doing this exercise to get those documents in a notebook is important.
Yeah.
So that people know what they have.
Yeah, I think the takeaway there is just to update them.
Yeah.
You know, like if you've got an advance directive that you did 5 years ago, you need to take a look at it. You know,
And life changes.
life changes, things happen. I've had a lot of patients over the years who maybe were legally married but separated from that spouse and even estranged from them. And you know, in the state of Alabama, your legal next of kin is always going to be your spouse is number one. So like, those are just things to think about. You know, if it's gonna, or if you're married and you don't want your spouse making decisions, like those things need to be in writing.
That's right. Especially if it's like a second marriage and,
Yeah.
you know, later in life and you want your adult children and things like that. Very important to get that in place as soon as you can.
Update it.
And update it. And we also have another checklist that we can provide, which is, so in the emergency checklist, obviously you're not going to put your financial information, but you do need to have whoever you've assigned as your power of attorney that you trust, passwords to your accounts. Where are your accounts?
Yep.
Just like we have your providers in here, like your healthcare providers, you need your attorney, your accountant, your financial planner, if you have that, your
Properties.
insurance agent, your property, where are the deeds to your house, where are the titles to your car, all of those different things, any of the passwords. You know, right before my about 2 or 3 months before my uncle died, I was their power of attorney. He sat me down and he went over, we met for 4 hours and he went over every single thing to, this is the password to get onto my computer. This is the password for this.
Yeah.
He had us have meetings with their team, so we all knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to have a huge team or whatever else, but you may have at least an accountant, or at least know where the bank accounts are.
Right.
So we have a checklist for that. That's super important to put together, and we can put that up on the screen as well. Here are some other questions as we wrap up. We knew this was going to be our short podcast, but it's very important, of things when you're thinking about, you know, putting this checklist together. One, obviously, we talked about the preferred hospital. Who are your emergency contacts? You know, maybe you don't have family in town.
Right.
Who is that emergency contact? If you've identified that emergency contact, let them know that they're an emergency contact and give them one of these. You know, if they're going to be your emergency contact, then you trust them to at least know something about your health.
Yeah, that's right.
When is the last time you saw your physician?
That's a good point.
You know, that's asked a lot of times when we're going through like long-term care insurance applications and stuff like that. When is the last time you saw your physician? When is the last time you had a medication change, and what was it? These are things to think about. And that's why when we were on that med list, if you're having some adjustments going on, that needs to be put in here. What's your baseline information? So this is what we used when we were helping our clients with COVID. So this is useful for emergency personnel to understand how you are day to day in case you are unable to speak for yourself in the emergency room. Do you typically walk by yourself with no assistive devices? Do you live alone? Can you do these things?
Are you working?
Are you working? That's right. You know, all of the things. So some of the things that we put in here, mobility. Are you able to transfer? How well could you get around? What does it normally look like for you? Cognitively, can you know, do you know basic memory questions? Do you typically have good processing and things like that? And a huge thing is knowledge of your medical history.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, again, when you start unraveling the things that you do, I mean, just, you know, for me, I'm a healthy, almost 49-year-old, but I have a primary care physician. I have an ENT. I have a women's health. I have a gynecologist. I have a dermatologist.
Breast health.
Breast health. Yeah. So, I mean, I've had all those things, and it's important to make sure at some point somebody knows all those things.
Yeah. And if there's complications, like you could have a procedure or surgery or something, and if there was a complication with that, then also people need to know, or it needs to be in the notebook.
Absolutely. Yes.
or if you're prone to infection, or you
Right.
get bronchitis or pneumonia every year, like just go ahead and add that in.
Absolutely. Very important. I have a screw in my foot. I have an orthopedist that, operated on me 6 years ago, however long ago. So all of those things are super important to know. And really, so we're going to provide those checklists on this website, on our website, or on the podcast, not our website. But very short podcast today, but super important. Everybody needs this.
And go back and re-listen
Go back and re-listen.
if you need to.
I will do this presentation, like garden clubs will ask me to come present to them. And this is what I present on.
Yeah, that's great.
And you'll be surprised the folks that are in the room at the garden club that look at me everybody needs to have an emergency notebook, but these are folks that really need to have the emergency notebook, and they go, I don't think I can do that. I don't know that I could do that. That just seems so daunting. Well, just tackle one question at a time. You can make a copy of your driver's license and your insurance cards today. Yeah. That's half the battle.
Yeah.
So everybody needs an emergency notebook. This is a short version. This could even get out on a couple of Instagram feeds today.
Hooray!
Who knows? But thank you for all our followers. We always are going to pitch something new and different and exciting as this is today. But this is exciting.
Do you have any emergency notebook funnies?
I have some good ones. Not necessarily a funny, but I had a husband and wife that I worked with. The husband had dementia. We put together their notebooks. The wife had some heart issues. She was kind of reluctant to even do this, but she's like, okay, I'll do it. She's the one that had to go to the emergency room.
Yeah, it happens.
And it followed her, and everything happened. I actually ended up going to be with the husband and was with him since he had dementia. And everybody, where it went, from EMS to the emergency room on, everyone was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much. Awesome. This has been so helpful. And in the moment, she was unable to really speak for herself because she was having a cardiac event.
Wow.
Do you have any funny emergency?
Well, I recently took one of our clients to rehab in another state. And when I dropped that person off, I said, this is their medication boxes from Homewood Pharmacy. Here's their emergency notebook. It's got recent notes from, previous doctor's appointments and hospitalizations. And this person's in their 40s. And so they were just in awe at this little rehab place. And the guy that was the director looked at me and he goes, do you want a job? I'm like, I'm doing my job.
That's right.
I'm doing it well. Here it is.
That's right. And I'm glad that you brought that up. So you can put all these protective sleeves in here. And honestly, anytime you go to the doctor or you're discharged from the hospital or the emergency room and you get those visit summaries, stick them in here.
Yeah.
Stick them in here.
I had a gentleman, I started doing that when he started having a lot of cardiac issues. And so his AFib stuff was in there. His heart cath stuff was in there. So anything that was very cardiac related just went right in there so that you didn't have to have a working memory of what happened and when and all the dates were there.
Yeah.
And it was more in depth than just listing, heart cath on this date and, pacemaker put on this date and different things like that.
Probably have like some of the doctor's transcription.
It had
nice.
labs in there, which was nice. And it had, a lot of that kind of stuff in there.
Absolutely.
And as the medications changed, like nebivolol was not a good medicine for him because it dropped his heart rate down. So like it had the history of all of that so that a hospitalist wouldn't have to go through all that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. And this can then become the notebook that you take to the doctor's office with you. So that, you can supply it instead of having to have that little, crinkled up piece of paper that's in your back pocket. Here's
the list of meds.
Yeah, the list of meds and they haven't been updated. Or that's like it's written in pencil and you can't understand it anymore. But this is it's a fluid notebook. Use it, add to it, update it.
Tell your kids where it is.
Update it. Tell everybody where it. Well, yeah, just people that you need to know where it is. But we'll supply that information, and this is a gift to help for your family. So as we're getting into the February month of heart and love, what says more love than an emergency notebook?
This is how we love each other.
This is how we love each other. That's right. Okay, well, thank you today. Anything to add on emergency notebooks?
No, I think that covered it.
Yeah. We don't have any zingers today, but,
All right.
don't need them sometimes. We need to just go straight to the facts.
Just
Okay. Everybody get an emergency checklist, update it, do everything you need to do, make sure it's there.
Subscribe.
Like, subscribe, follow us on
Share.
Spotify, share,
Yes.
Shaylee.
See, that's why you hired me.
Yes. Like, subscribe, follow, share on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube.
Yep.
Thank you, Shaylee and Nicole and Taylor from behind the scenes and the cheap seats over there, helping us out today with the pharmacy and everything else. So thank you for being here and look forward to our next podcast.
Bye for now.
Bye.